Welcome back to the channel and to another episode of Trey's Pick 6. It is week 8 in the NFL. We got another show for you guys. Now, typically in these shows, I break down my favorite 6 plays off of the slate. Here in week 8, I found just a handful more than 6 plays that I like, so we're going to get into each of those plays. Make sure you check back into the pinned comments so you can see if I end up rolling with all of these plays, and if I do, how I end up slicing it up. Maybe we just put a half unit on some of them instead of a full unit. So like I said, make sure you check back into that pinned comment. But before we dive into these games, we got to go over what we took in week 7 and how that ended up going down. Now, we have a 3-3 week on week 7, so we don't lose any money, but we don't win any money either, and that is the ultimate goal at the end of the day. So we do look to get back on the profitable side of things here in week 8, but we are 27-16 still on the season so far. We are up exactly 10 units, so we are still in the green on the year, having a good start to the NFL season. But like I said, man, we don't like those 3-3 weeks. We want to get back on the profitable side of things here in week 8. So we're going to dive into these picks, guys. One more thing before we do, make sure you hit that like button down below and hit subscribe as well down there if you have not already. The channel is almost at 100,000 subscribers. That is insanity. Just crazy to me, man. I came from little old Let 'Em Ride channel before Ev hit me up to make videos over here. I had 300 and some subscribers, man. 100,000 subscribers is insane. You guys are awesome, man. The support is crazy over here on this channel. I'm happy to be a part of it, man. Pretty honored to be a part of it as well. So let's dive into these picks. Like I said, for week 8, we're going to get started. We're going to jump over to the outlier screen for the first play of the day. I'm going to be looking at the Eagles and the Bengals game. Looking at Grant Calcaterra, the backup tight end for the Eagles. Looking at his receptions over 2.5, and we can get this at plus money right now on FanDuel, plus 108. Now, like I said, he is the backup tight end, but if we come over here and check out the injuries, we can see that Dallas Goedert is out for the Eagles, so he will be moving in to that starting lineup. And the biggest thing I like here, because look, there's not a lot of data on this, right? He's not the starter, so we haven't seen a lot of action from him. You know, we can even look at this insight from Outlier, and it would scare the hell out of us, right? He has failed to exceed 2.5 receptions in 18 of his last 19 games. 95% hit rate to the under. So, not what we're looking at here, or not what we want to see when we're looking at this one here. But we can see down here that Goddard is the second most targeted player on this Philadelphia roster, right? We can see Grant Calcaterra all the way down here sitting at 6th. But he is the next most targeted tight end. And obviously, like I said, he will be rolling in to that tight end position. Now, let's look at this on the over. Like I said, we can find this at plus 108. If we jump over here, this is what makes this one interesting, man. The Bengals are 24th in terms of receptions allowed against tight ends, 28th. So definitely playing into our favor in this one here. And I can tell you as a Bengals fan that, man, the Bengals have always struggled against tight ends. It is always so frustrating as well, man. And it doesn't matter. We'll play these teams where the starting tight end is out. You can think like, okay, man, maybe this isn't the game that their tight ends eat against us. No, man, it's not the case. It is going to happen. So if I can catch this one right here at plus money, I think it's well worth that risk, man. Over 2.5, we just need him to get 3 receptions. I can see this one happening, definitely. Jalen Hurts definitely has that ability to scramble around, break out of the pocket. The defensive line for the Bengals has looked tremendously better since they've gotten healthier. But that secondary is still shaky. It is still very weak. Definitely the weakest point on that defensive side of the ball. And it just makes things harder on everybody else on that defensive side of the ball as well. And like I said, just because that defensive line's looking better, Jalen Hurts' ability to scramble around still is what scares me the most. So I just feel like we're going to see Grant, kind of hanging out in that flat and catching a couple of those balls when we see Jalen Hurts, scrambling to evade the pressure. So over 2.5 receptions for a tight end going up against the Bengals, it feels too easy at plus money. I'm willing to take that risk every day of the week. Next up, I'm looking at the Falcons on the money line against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, we can get this at minus 142 on DraftKings. Now, if we look over here, we can see, we'll look at the Falcons defense first against this Tampa Bay Buccaneer offense. And typically, this would have me a little nervous, right? They're sitting at 22nd as far as scoring. The Bucs sitting at 4th as far as scoring. Their defense, their passing defense sitting at 14th, rushing defense sitting at 24th in terms of yards given up, Bucs 7th and 8th in terms of passing yards and rushing yards gained. So, there are a handful of things here statistically would make you a little bit nervous. But then we look at Tampa Bay and all the injuries that they have, that they've suffered over these last few weeks. Both their top two starting receivers are out. Um, where's the offense going to come from? So it's not quite as scary as these numbers would indicate. And if we flip this and look at the Falcons' offense against that Tampa Bay defense, now we see some indiscrepancies, right? We got the Falcons sitting at 6th in terms of passing yards, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sitting at 29th in terms of yards given up through the air. And in the last game, man, Kirk Cousins 8 against this Tampa Bay defense. I know he threw over 400 yards. I think he might have got close to 500 in that one if he didn't crack it, but I know he was definitely up in the 400s. Just 8, man. Had a great game against that Tampa Bay defense. And the Falcons have now won 2 of the last 3 games against the Tampa Bay squad as well, just going head to head. But I think with that money line being so juiced like that at minus 146, we can jump over here to FanDuel. I think I'd like to play it with an alternate total of 40.5. Look at it. Look at the over there. Play those together, man, and we can get that at plus 131 instead. I think I like that a lot better because I think we still get some points here. I don't think the Tampa Bay is just dead in the waters. They still do have talent on that side of the ball, or just on that team in general. They can still run the ball, and that Atlanta run defense is a little bit shaky. So I definitely think that we can see some points from Tampa Bay still. And I definitely think that Atlanta gets a ton of points up. So I think getting over 40.5 is reasonable. I think that's doable. But I do think the Falcons come away with the victory here. And like I said, if we combine both those together right now on FanDuel, we can get it at plus money, plus 131. And then keeping it in that Atlanta game, I'm looking at Drake London. His receptions over 5.5. This one's a little juiced at minus 135. That's the best price we can find it right now at Bet365. But if we look over here, man, like I said, Tampa Bay struggles against that pass. For receptions allowed, they sit at 28th overall. And then if we look at Drake London himself, he has exceeded this 5.5 reception mark in 6 straight games, excuse me, 6 of his last 6 games for a 100% rate. Now, look, he has just got over that mark, right? 6 receptions in 5 of those 6 games, but we are clearing that mark still. And then going up against this Tampa Bay defense as well, that is just pretty horrendous against the pass on the season. If we look at him head-to-head against the Bucs as well, he has also cleared this mark in 3 straight games for a 100% hit rate. 6, 10, 12 in the last meeting that went to overtime as well. So, look, I do think Drake gets up over that 5.5 reception mark again. All good things must come to an end, but is it going to come to an end against this Tampa Bay defense? I don't think so. So, I'll take it even at the juice price of minus 135 over there on Bet365. Next up, going to be looking at Aaron Rodgers of the Jets. His passing attempts over 33.5. We get this on FanDuel right now at minus 108. Significantly better odds than any other book out there on the market right now. So let's dive into it, guys. Let's dive down below here. We can see this insight from Outlier. He's exceeded this 33.5 passing attempt mark in 5 straight games. Now he's actually averaging 41 passing attempts in 5 straight games. Clearing this mark, man. Look, 42, 54, 35, 39, 35. He is definitely getting up over that mark. And it makes sense, man. They don't have much of a rushing attack. If we dive down here, we can see they are 11th in passing yards, 31st, second to last in terms of rushing yards gained per game. And then we can see that this New England defense, man, they're going to let you throw the ball against them, right? They're giving up the 24th most passing yards per game. They're actually sitting at 30th in terms of DVOA pass defense as well. And the Jets are just a pass-heavy team, man. We could come down here and can see that they are 65% in terms of passing rate up against 35% for their run rate. Just definitely a pass-heavy squad, and that got to figure to go up with the addition of Devontae Adams, right? In his second game as well with the Jets now. We can see that he's hit it, like we said, 5 times in a row there. And that last time against the New England Patriots, even in a 24-3, can't really call that a blowout, but, the game's not close, and he's still hitting it at hitting above this 33.5 rate. So even when the game's not close, he is still putting the ball through the air a ton, 35 passing attempts there. So I do like our chances, even if this game isn't close again, and the Jets start to run away with this one. Next up, I'm going to be looking at Jameis Winston of the Browns getting his first start. He came in for that last drive against the Bengals last week. led them down the field for a touchdown. I'm going to be looking at his rushing yards and fading him, looking at the under. We can get it under 10.5. We can look at that at minus 125. Or we can, get a little more ballsy with it. Under 9.5, we can get those odds all the way up to minus 105. And you know what? I like it at minus 9.5 as well, or under 9.5 as well, guys. Um, Look, clearly the data is going to scream 100% everywhere because Jameis hasn't really started much in these last few years, correct? But the thing is, what I'm looking at the most is that Baltimore rushing defense. I do think that they will struggle through the air some with Jameis. He is known to sling the ball down the field. He is he's more of a pocket passer, than Deshaun Watson. I don't think that we're going to see Jameis back there scrambling all around. He has that capability if he's under pressure. He can definitely make something happen, but I definitely think that we're going to see him look to throw the ball down the field a lot more than what we saw with Watson out there. And they did just pass over the offensive coordinator duties, the offensive play calling duties to the coordinator, Ken Dorsey. So, I got to feel like we see a shuffle and pace in this offense, and they got to do something to try to ignite some life into that offense, man. It's been just absolutely dreadful. Let's look at it over here compared against this Baltimore defense. We can see 29th in terms of scoring for the Browns, 30th in terms of passing yards, 28th in terms of rushing yards, 32nd dead last in terms of yards per play. They're giving up the most sacks as well, giving up the most QB hits. So I just, I don't see Jameis trying to break out and run against this defense for one. I think that he's going to look to try to get the ball downfield. And like I said, just kind of ignite some life into this team. So I definitely like this one here. Like I said, under 9.5 at minus 105. And then the last time that, he's only played them once in his career, 2 attempts on the ground rushing for absolutely 0 yards. So said Baltimore rush defense, first overall in the league, 4th in terms of DVOA. So gotta like our chances here at Jameis Winston under 9.5 rushing yards at minus 105. Like I said, we can get that at Bet365. Next up, looking at that Panther and Bronco game. Looking at Bryce Young, looking at a couple of his props actually. Going to start looking at his passing touchdowns, fading him that he's not going to throw a single touchdown, looking at that under half a touchdown. We can get that at plus money. I think that's what makes that the most appealing here. Plus money, plus 112 right now at FanDuel. It is not at plus money anywhere else that we can find it. So FanDuel is killing it on the props here this week in week 8. Most of these props that we found, FanDuel has the best odds, significantly better in some of these categories as well. We can see that the Broncos are 5th in terms of touchdowns against them through the air on the season. Bryce Young, man, has definitely had his struggles. And the Panthers just in general, right? 28th in scoring up against that Denver defense, 3rd in terms of scoring against them. 5th in terms of passing yards against, 28th in terms of passing yards for when we look at the Panthers. The Broncos are just all over quarterbacks, right? 2nd in the league in sacks, 1st in hits. Look, Bryce Young struggled before he lost the starting position. I don't see how that changes here in his first game back against a Bronco defense that has turned out to be one of the best defenses in the league so far this year. They're actually sitting at 3rd in terms of total defense. And then also, like I said, 3rd in terms of scoring defense as well. So looking at fading Bryce on a passing touchdown in his first game back against such a stout defense at plus money definitely is appealing to me. Then I'm also looking at his under in terms of passing and rushing yards, under 172.5. We can see that he has come under that mark now in what's that? 5 of the 6 games that he has last appeared in. But the biggest thing is that Denver Bronco defense. That's what I'm looking at more than anything. 5th in terms of passing yards allowed, 10th in terms of rushing yards allowed. So I definitely like this here as well. We can find that one at minus 120 odds on DraftKings. Look, I just don't think Bryce Young has his, breakout game against this Denver Bronco defense, right? And then you can just take it back to these games that he did go over, and he's just getting over. He's still in that 170s mark, right? So it's not like he's crushing the number by any means. There's just this one game against Green Bay that was a shootout, 33-30. Where he had over 300 yards passing. But like I said, man, I just don't see Bryce Young having that breakout game against this Denver Bronco defense. And I can definitely see him getting under this mark here, that 172.5 passing plus rushing yards mark against this Denver defense that's only allowing 170 yards through the air on average and 111 yards on the ground rushing. Then next up, I'm jumping back over here to FanDuel for our last pick. I'm looking at the Steelers and the Giants, looking at a parlay, taking the Steelers on the money line and combining that with an alternate total under 39.5 and getting that at plus 105. So let's jump back over to Outlier, looking at that under, right? We're looking at the Giants here on offense. They are at 30th in terms of scoring, 23rd in terms of passing yards, 25th in terms of rushing yard against a second-ranked Steeler defense in terms of points against, right? They're 22nd in terms of passing yards. They're 12th when you look at them from a DVOA perspective in terms of passing. Second in rushing yards, third from a DVOA perspective. So Pittsburgh defense is definitely stout. It's going to give Daniel Jones and this New York Giant offense a ton of troubles indeed, which is also why I'm looking at them on the money line in this one. I'm not sure I want to lay that many points with a Steeler team. Look, I know that they just beat the brakes off the Jets, but the Jets team is sitting at 2-5. It's not like they are living up to any of the expectations that they had coming into this season. And Russell Wilson playing in his first game on the season, not a lot of film to go over, not any film to go over with him whatsoever as a Pittsburgh Steeler. So maybe that played into that explosion as well on the offensive side of things for the Steelers against that Jet team. I'm just not buying it completely yet, that the Steelers are now some kind of passing juggernaut and Russell Wilson's going to lead them to the promised land. And it's not even me being a hateful Bengal fan. You can look back at these videos so far. I picked the Steelers quite a bit throughout this year in terms of Chris Boswell props, and then the Steelers on the spread, on the money line. I've cashed on them more times than not so far between player props and the Steelers on the spread. So definitely not me being a Bengal hater by any means, or a hater of the Steelers as a Bengal fan by any means. But look, I'm just, like I said, I'm not sold completely on Russell Wilson just turning this offensive unit into a juggernaut all of a sudden. So I definitely like the under here. And then if we look at that offense versus that Giant defense. Now, the Giants are sitting at first in terms of sacks. The Steelers have definitely been shaky on that offensive line. They've definitely had some injuries to overcome as well. They are sitting at 14th in terms of sacks given up, 22nd in terms of QB hits, 11th in terms of QB hurries. They've definitely taken some pressure at that quarterback position. And Russell's just not that's not the same athletic in his prime Russell Wilson that we've seen in the past. This Giant defense is going to get to him. It's going to make things rough on him as well. So I definitely see a low-scoring game. I just think that the Steelers have more at the end of the day than this Giants team. I think that they can beat you on the ground with that 9th-ranked rushing attack going up against that 25th ranked rushing defense for the New York Giants. So I think that they squeak by in this one. That's why I'm taking them on the money line and avoiding that 5.5 point spread right there. I definitely think we have a low scoring game where the defenses are dominant and prevailing. Probably a boring game, a boring Monday night football game for most people. I love defensive football, man. I think it's what we're used to here in the AFC North. It's just some hard-fought defensive battles. I love it myself. I'll be tuning into this one, and that's what I expect to see. So, guys, that is going to wrap it up here for another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the content today. I hope you found it helpful and useful, and if you did, please do not forget to smash that like button down below if you have not already. Hit subscribe as well if you are not subscribed to the channel. That way you do not miss out on any of the content that we are dropping here on a daily. Now, that's going to do it, guys. Hope we have a great Week 8. Best of luck to all of you out there. Drop your favorite plays down there in the comments as well, guys. I love to see what you guys have cooked up, and I love celebrating with you guys when you cash down there as well. So I will see you guys on the next video. Best of luck.